In the world of elite sports, the quest to be the absolute best is relentless. Today's athletes are pushing the limits in ways we've never seen before. So in this explainer, we're going to explore that entire spectrum of performance, from the rock-solid science all the way to the controversial, unregulated frontier. Let's dive in.
So let me ask you this. How far would you really go? For a top-tier athlete, the gap between winning it all and going home with nothing can be just a tiny, tiny fraction of a percent. To get that edge, what are you willing to risk?
We're going to take a journey right across this spectrum. See, on one end, you've got the stuff that's proven. It's low risk, it's backed by tons of evidence. And on the other end, well, that's where you find the high-risk gambles with barely any science to back them up. So let's start with the foundation.
Before we jump into the wilder stuff, we have to talk about the absolute bedrock of all performance, nutrition. And specifically, we're going to look at how science is totally rethinking one of the most basic building blocks we have, protein.
Okay, so here's the key idea. Not all protein is used by your body in the same way. There's this one amino acid called leucine, and you can think of it like the ignition key for your body's muscle-building engine. For older adults especially, if you don't get enough leucine in one sitting, that engine just won't turn over.
And this is where it gets fascinating. Just look at how our bodies change. When you're younger, you're super efficient. Almost any amount of protein gets the job done. But check out that bar for older adults. Once you're over 60, you need a much bigger dose. We're talking around 30 grams of high-quality protein just to hit that leucine trigger and kickstart muscle growth.
This slide just nails the problem with how most of us eat. Look at the typical diet on the left. You know, a tiny breakfast, a medium lunch, and then this huge dinner. You're completely missing that muscle-building window all morning and afternoon. Now, look at the balanced approach. By just spreading that protein out, you hit the trigger 3 times a day. It's way, way more effective for building muscle over that same 24-hour period.
And look, this isn't just some theory. This is a direct, actionable tip straight from the research. The science is crystal clear. If you want to maintain muscle as you age, you've got to start loading up on protein earlier in the day.
Okay, let's keep moving down the spectrum. We're shifting gears now from the biological to the technological. What happens when an athlete's body is no longer just a body, but a constant, flowing stream of data? Just look at that number. That was the size of the wearable tech market all the way back in 2020. And believe me, it has exploded since then. And we are talking about way more than just counting your steps here. This is a total revolution in how we measure and manage athletic performance.
I mean, think about it. Every single second, these little sensors are grabbing an incredible amount of information. They're tracking the basics, sure, like heart rate, but they're also tracking the super detailed biomechanics of every single movement, the speed, the force, the angle. The athlete has literally become a living, breathing data set.
But all that data, it's pretty much useless noise without some way to make sense of it. And that, right there, is where AI steps in. It's like the ultimate filter, sifting through this absolute flood of information to find the patterns, the little signals that no human coach could ever hope to spot on their own.
You can think of AI as the ultimate digital coach, and it's working 24/7 through every phase of competition. Before a big game, it can actually predict your risk of injury. In the middle of the action, it can suggest real-time strategy changes. And after it's all over, it helps figure out what's wrong and designs a personalized recovery plan. It's a complete game changer.
And that brings us to the final stop on our journey. We're now at the far end of the spectrum. This is the gray zone. The unregulated, high-risk, high-reward world where some athletes are literally experimenting on themselves to find that next edge.
This little vial you see here, it represents a massive underground market. The stuff inside are called peptides, and they promise almost magical results. Things like super fast healing and recovery. But here's the catch. They're often sold as research chemicals, which is a neat little trick to get around all the safety regulations. And one of the biggest names in this world is a peptide called BPC-157. It's actually derived from a protein found in your own stomach acid, and the claims about it are just extraordinary, that it can rapidly heal some of the toughest injuries in sports. The huge problem? It's never been approved for people to use by the FDA.
So you're probably wondering, why on earth would any athlete take that risk? Well, it's because in animal studies, the results are, honestly, they sound too good to be true. We're talking about faster, stronger, better healing of muscles, tendons, ligaments, you name it, in a lab rat and looks like a miracle cure.
But, and this is the most important part of this whole discussion, it cannot be stressed enough, when scientists actually looked at all the evidence,
They found dozens of promising studies in animals. But the number of clinical studies to prove it's actually safe and effective for you and me, for humans, 0. A big, fat 0. A complete black hole of evidence.
And, as you can see, the major sports organizations, they are not waiting around to find out. The World Anti-Doping Agency, the UFC, the NFL, they've all slammed the door and banned BPC 157. Even the FDA has put out warnings calling it a substance with significant safety concerns. For them, the risk is just way too high.
So how is this stuff even being sold? Well, it all comes down to a legal loophole. By slapping a label on the bottle that says research chemical, not for human consumption, these suppliers can operate in this murky gray market, completely bypassing any FDA oversight on whether the product is pure, safe, or even what they claim it is.
So there you have it. That's the modern spectrum of performance. You start with a solid foundation, things with low risk and high evidence, like optimizing your protein. Then you move to the exciting new frontier of data and AI. And finally, you get all the way out to the high-stakes, high-risk gamble of the unregulated gray zone.
Which leaves us with a really big, complicated question for the future. You see, the line between healing an injury and enhancing your body is getting blurrier every single day. As all these technologies get more and more powerful, who gets to draw the line and decide what's fair? And what does that mean for the very soul of sport?